Hello, changelings, and welcome to the Night Garden. I'm VampireAntihero, and this is Conquer Thy Fear Studio. Hey y'all, so today I wanted to talk about figuring out how to do a comic layout. I'm currently working on a redraw of an old comic, and I figured that I could use this as an opportunity to share some of what I've learned what not to do through the previous redraws. That being said, I hope that this rambly video is of some use to you. We'll be hitting a couple of topics throughout, but it can be summed up to these points. The difference between Infinity Scroll and standard layout comics, using your visual library and references, figuring out the flow of the page and using thumbnails, and what information to show and what information to hide. So first, let's talk about the differences that go into Infinity Scroll layouts and a standard comic layout on a page. When we're talking about Infinity Scroll layouts, we're talking about things like webtoons or other webcomic areas, how those comics are set up. The panels are usually set up far differently than the panels on a page layout. There's the opportunity for the art to flow a lot better outside of panels, and the panels are spaced in such a way that it makes it easy to read at a certain tempo when scrolling down the page. With a standard comics page, you see the panels as a whole, and the way that your panels are laid out makes it so that you know what you are reading first, and the panels themselves lead your eyes through the story. Now that the differences between an Infinity Scroll and a standard comic page are understood, where do we start? Before we ever put pencil to paper, one of the most important things you can do for comic creation is to start building and using your visual library and references. Usually, we talk about these things in terms of actually creating an illustration, but I think that having a visual library built up for layouts is just as important as a design aspect. Illustrations are made up of shapes. Your comic layouts are made up of shapes. So what do I mean by this? Your visual library is literally just what you can picture from your mind or what you can see in front of you. When I'm talking about this in terms of layouts, what I'm saying is think about the comics that inspire you, or grab your favorite comic from the shelf, pull it up on your internet browser, and critically think about it. What do you like about it? How does it flow? Is there something about it that makes it easier to read? What information do they show? What's hidden and implied? Here are some of the ones that I personally enjoy, and I'll break them down a little bit as I show each one. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about is Harleen by Stepan Sejic, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. I have two different pages that I've picked up. The first one that I'm going to be showing is this one here. It's a pretty standard layout, but what makes it work well is showing the dichotomy between her fear and his kind of arrogance and excitedness at making her feel that way. Like, there is the way that this flows between, each panel works because of how the art is framed within and has it give a good pace to the story. And this is something that is fairly low action, but if you go for something that is a little bit more dynamic as a layout, let's go for another Harleen page. She's got some mental turmoil going on in the story at this point, and we're seeing pieces of her turmoil. And I'm sorry, this one is in German. This was just a shot of it that I found online. But you can still kind of see what is going on in her mind as she's sitting here trying to figure out what she's going through. So then switching gears to Rachel Smythe with Lore Olympus. This is an Infinity Scroll comic to have a different kind of comic to show. She does a lot of things with like simple framing and portraits, which can get really boring really quick if you don't do it correctly. In these situations, like we see, this is one of the characters talking to someone, trying to make small talk. The next panel is that character being entirely unimpressed, and then her being shocked and humbled. So you can see how you can do very lot with very little happening in the comic panels and still have it be well paced and give a lot of information. If you're still lost on how to lay out your comic, even after looking at some of the things that inspire you, there's always finding other references in just comic templates. This particular one I found at Target, and it's technically a sketchbook, but there's plenty of layout ideas in this. I don't use it for actually drawing in, I just keep it around as a reference. So now that we've looked at some of the stuff that we enjoy with a little bit more of a critical eye, we can finally sit down and put pen to paper. But we're not quite to the point of our full illustration work just yet. I'm not going to go super in depth about thumbnails here since I've already done a video on them, but we'll be talking about thumbnails in terms of the flow of art here, kind of like a storyboard. This goes hand in hand with the next topic, what information to show and what to hide. Thumbnailing in this sense takes care of several different issues at once. In this sense, we can try out a layout without committing to it and figure out how the flow of information feels on the page. A lot of what goes into figuring out what information to show and what to hide is just decision making. If you have two characters having a conversation and you just keep showing the same angle every panel, well, that's not super interesting, right? But if you show a close-up here or a glance downward there, suddenly the art is showing the emotion and adding flavor to the dialogue. And the same thing comes with more action-packed panels too. Say we have a fight scene here and we want the focus to be on how chaotic the scene is. For a standard page layout, this might mean more panels that are haphazardly placed or placed a bit more chaotically on the page. For an infinity scroll comic, this might mean tighter together panels. But for both, it means putting more emphasis on long shots and showing key action points in the art. In this particular situation that I'm currently drawing in this comic, I'm writing about what you picture in your mind to certain trigger words, so I want the art to be a bit amorphous and fantastical in these portions. We're at the beginning of the story, so I want the panels to be slower paced and have a slower build-up. So I'm going to go for less panels on the page, and have kind of a blobby amorphous look to the artwork. Maybe the artwork is going to be a little bit too bright. Maybe there's not a lot of definition at the edges and I don't actually have a border around my panel. When I'm happy with the panel layout, I can size them up and put them where they need to go in order to start the sketch. So let's start another page. This one will be just a standalone, something with more action involved. Let's do something scary in the spirit of spooky season. Just a one-page comic, maybe a chase scene. The night starts coming on aggressively early at this time of year where I am, and the fear of darkness is generally a common fear, so let's turn that literal. So I have a concept, now let's lay it into a comic form. I think the best way to do this would be a large image overall, and maybe 3 smaller panels, with the last one breaking out of the bounds of the original drawing. So let's sketch that out. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I'm doing this after the fact of the initial drawing. It's been a few days of sitting on this thumbnail, and I realized I wanted to change the layout a little bit more because the action doesn't read as well. I also wanted to actually design a scary creature instead of having this amorphous blob behind the character. The top panel of this comic is going to be a wallpaper for coffee supporters, so I've already started to redraw it in another illustration with better proportions. Since this is a video on creating a comic layout, I wanted to include the revision I made for y'all to see. I'll also have the finished product shown at the end of the video, so if you're interested in seeing, just keep tuned. And here we go, a fun little comic for spooky season later, and hopefully you have a better understanding of how to put together comic layouts. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope that you have a lovely time of things. I'll be back soon. If you made it to this part of the video, thank you for watching. I hope that I was able to motivate and inspire you today. If you like what I do, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and as always, thank you to my wonderful coffee patrons, the lovely Rosie T and Life is Great. I couldn't keep doing this without you guys. I also have a Ko-fi where you can donate, subscribe to a monthly membership, or check out some of my merch for sale. You will also get access to sketches, works in progress, and exclusive desktop and phone wallpapers if you subscribe. If you'd like to see more content, I regularly post on Twitter, and I'm live on Twitch 3 to 4 days a week. I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and until next time the sun goes down, keep yourself safe, drink your water, and do what you can. I love you all.